Hello and welcome to the Foundations of Stocks and Options, and we are thrilled to have you with us in this online on-demand version of. So as we get going into this first lesson, this is an introductory class today. This particular lesson, we're just going to do an overview of the Foundations program as well as just kind of what it's going to take for you to be a successful trader as you jump into the market. In this first lesson, we're going to learn about the Foundations of Stocks and Options program, as I've already mentioned, and then we're going to talk about your roadmap to success. What it's going to take for you to go from where you are to where you want to be. And then finally, we're going to talk about the chart, get you a good introduction into the building blocks of what we're going to be using for our analysis process. And finally, we'll have some action steps for you to complete before the next lesson. So let's get started. So as we get going with this introduction into the Foundations program, the first thing I want to state is my objective. I have one primary outcome, and that is to help you put money in your bank account with trading. I know that's probably your outcome too. You want to go make some money. And so the question is, how do we make sure that we're putting money into our bank account with the act of trading or the process of trading? And to break this down, I've come up with three what I call cornerstones or building blocks to building what I refer to as our trading fortress. Just imagine as we start to put all these pieces in place that we're building a building that's going to stand around us and it's going to protect us and teach us and guide us as we trade the market. We'll call it our trading fortress. And I've broken down three cornerstones to this trading fortress. The first one is the right education. The second one is planning and execution. And finally, the third one is to have the right mindset. So let's look at each of these. As we think about the right education, we can break this down to three further subpoints. The first one are the mechanics of trading. The second one being the analysis of the trading process. And finally, the strategies of trading. What do each of these mean? As we think about the mechanics of trading, this is kind of the ins and outs of how you trade. For example, how do you place an order? What's the difference in a long trade and a short trade? The very basic stuff. We're going to deal a little bit with those kind of issues here in the Foundations program, but for the most part, those kind of subjects are covered in our other program called the Stock Market Made Simple. If you need some of those basic market mechanics, you probably want to check out the Stock Market Made Simple program. Now, as we look at the analysis process of the right education of trading, that's where the bulk of the Foundations program is really going to shine. This is how do we read the market? How do we analyze what's going on? How do we interpret the data? Determine, is the stock going up? Is the stock going down? Is the stock going sideways? How do we take all that information and pull it together so we have a really good idea of what the next movement is price-wise of the individual trade? And then finally, when we think about the strategies, this is how we play the market. And when I talk about playing the market, I mean now that we've decided which direction the market's going, strategically, how do we want to implement that? We could do that by placing a long trade. We could do a short trade if it's a bearish market, or perhaps we're going to use some options. Maybe we'll use some spread types of strategies. There's a lot of different strategies and a lot of different ways we can play the market, but that's all a strategic decision. So you can really break down the education process into those three components: learning the market mechanics, learning the trade analysis, and then finally learning the right strategies. Now, if we look at these three components, it's interesting because the middle component, the analysis, this is where most people never take the time to really learn what's going on in the market. There's a lot of people that are out there teaching advanced strategies, and you'll hear their advertisements. They'll say, oh, we'll teach you to trade, 15 different strategies for every market condition. But having all the strategies in the world, it does nothing for you, and it won't put any money in your bank account if you don't know when to use those strategies. So the analysis is really, really important for that. Then as we think about the market mechanics, this is the very basic stuff. Most brokers teach all of that stuff. And so there's a big void, there's a gap in the educational process for most people, and that is really the analysis center there. That's why we spend so much time focusing on the analysis part. Now, if we look at the second cornerstone of the trading fortress, I refer to that as the planning and the execution phase. Learning the right information is very important. That's the knowledge. That's the right education. But having all that knowledge is useless if we don't know how to implement it. And so that's why the planning and the execution phase is so important. And the first part of the planning execution phase is what we refer to as trader conditioning. Now, the trader conditioning process is a process that will take that head knowledge that you spend all your time learning about, that head knowledge that you spend so much time studying for and learning the ins and outs about, and it will turn that into second nature. At first when you come to the market, you start learning all this new stuff. It feels like it's all this information information just coming at you from every different angle. But the truth is, it's not that much once your brain learns how to organize it. And that's what the trader conditioning process does. The trader conditioning process is a process that I created for myself many years ago. That's really what I credit for putting me over the top and really teaching me how to trade. It was a process that transferred all that head knowledge into a skill set that we can use. And so I've taken all that information, all those exercises that I did way back then, and I've put it together into this process that we call trader conditioning. Very, very important if you want to be great at doing trade execution. Now, the second point under the planning and the execution phase is to write your plan and then follow your trading plan. It's often been said that failure to plan is planning to fail. And there's really never been truer words, especially when we think about the stock market. And there's a very simple way that we need to do trading plans, but it's essential that we actually take the time to do it. Right here in this first level of the Foundations program, here in level 1, we're going to create your first trading plan around class number 6, class number 7. And then finally, under the planning and execution, it's really important that we learn how to measure and adjust those plans. No plan is going to be perfect. And so we've got to go into a plan. This is our plan. This is how we expect to execute it, but then there's going to be adjustments and there's going to be measurements. So those are your first two cornerstones. The first one being the right education, the second one being the planning and the execution, and then finally the third cornerstone of excellent trading or building your trading fortress is going to be what I refer to as the mindset of the trader. Whenever we talk about trading psychology, we talk about trading mindset, people, they tend to shut this off because I think people have an idea that if you're dealing with psychology, then, you got to be spread out on a couch talking to a shrink somewhere. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about trading psychology. Trading psychology is the mindset of how a trader approaches the market. You can have two different traders. One, both of them go through the exact same class together. I teach them the exact same thing, but one of them goes on to make a lot of money and the other one does not go on to make much money. And you say, well, how can it be that one would struggle whereas one would go on and make all the money they ever dreamed of making? And the answer that we've found through our study and through working with thousands of students now is that in almost every case, it comes down to one of two things, either risk management or mindset. And so we're going to deal a lot with the trading psychology component and the trading mindset. As we break down the trading mindset, we can really give this 3 points as well. It's going to involve a winning philosophy. In most cases, it's going to require a shift in perspective. Most of us have been conditioned to believe or to think about the market from one perspective. And oftentimes, it's just a small little shift in a different direction that's going to give us the perspective that we need to really understand what's going on in the market. So it's going to probably require a shift in perspective. And most importantly, the winning mindset is going to require belief that you can do this. And all I can say about the belief part is you've got to choose to believe. The financial industry would not exist. It would not survive all these years if people didn't make money with it. If it was just random gambling, the industry wouldn't exist. There's financial professionals for a reason. And that's because there's an industry that makes them a lot of money. And you also can participate in that industry. The thing that I have found that differentiates the average trader versus the professional trader in almost every case are the boundaries and the tools that they put around themselves. It's not that the average quote-unquote little guy can't make money. It's the issue that they don't have the same plan that the big guys have. And so what we're going to be dealing with as we go through the right education, as we go through creating the trading plans and the execution, and then finally the mindset is we're going to be conditioning you and reshaping the way you think about the market, the way you approach the market, and helping you start to think about it more like a professional. All right, now, if you have been following my little analogy here of the cornerstones, you might be realizing that there's something missing. Have you ever seen a building with just 3 cornerstones? Of course, you've never seen that because buildings always have at least 4 walls, right? So what's the 4th cornerstone? Well, the 4th cornerstone is going to be you. It's really essential that you show up and you participate. The 4th cornerstone is you. You cannot be successful if I'm doing all the work for you. I'm going to give you the best I've got. I'm going to make sure that I teach you the information. I'm going to make sure that all the information you need is here. But it's going to require that you're committed. It's going to be requiring that you take the action, that you do the homework, and then most importantly, that you have the courage to go out and try it, even just in your virtual account so you can start to see those results. It's often been said that goals without actions are just dreams, and there's really never been truer words ever stated. And so the 4th cornerstone to building a trading fortress is going to be you. All right, now, with that in mind, let me give you a quick overview of the overall Foundations program. And then we'll wrap up this first little introduction here. In the level 1 section, the first class, as you're experiencing right now, is the introduction. Then we're going to get into the support and resistance discussions. That will move us into basic stock orders, advanced line drawing, the trend following system. Right here in this first series, the first 8 classes, you're going to learn a trend following system that is a profitable system in and of itself. And then at the end of that, we will start writing your first trading plan, doing the execution on that, and then that will lead us into our introduction into options, and then a class that we call the ultimate dividend. Now, as we move into level 2, this is where we're going to start to really focus in on the analysis part of trading. This is where we get into the really in-depth components of reading the market effectively. You're going to learn things like technical trading. You're going to learn how to do more advanced line drawing in the kind of the perspective of what we started to set up there at the beginning of level 2. And then we'll get into the chart patterns, the candlestick patterns, and the indicators. And all of that is going to be a self-contained program that truly stands on its own as an incredible technical analysis program. Now, once you've gone through level 1 and level 2, you've got all the head knowledge that you need. Now it comes into an application process, and that's where level 3 comes in. This is where we're going to get into the 2 classes on trader conditioning, which I think if I were to say which ones are the 2 most important classes in all of the program, it's probably those 2 trader conditioning classes. Of course, they don't make any sense without the other preceding 16 classes, but trader conditioning is going to be coming up in level 3. And then we'll get into the more advanced subjects of options trading, more details in options, and finally we'll talk about custom trading plans and money management and trading psychology. All right? So you've made a great decision to join us. We're thrilled that you're here with us. I'm looking forward to sharing this stuff with us. In the next section, we're going to start talking about your roadmap to success.